In the gathering shadow of war over late 1930s, Germany, a new kind of energy was being bottled. In 1937, the pharmaceutical firm Temmler-Werke introduced an innocuous white pill called Pervitin, sold over the counter in pharmacies across the Reich. Inside this seemingly harmless tablet lay a potent core of methamphetamine hydrochloride, a powerful stimulant first synthesized in Japan back in 1893. Pervitin was marketed as a modern miracle, a simple cure for the fatigue of daily life. Advertisements promised renewed confidence, sharp alertness, and even weight loss. Housewives, students, and factory workers alike embraced it as a common pep pill, a way to stay awake, concentrate harder, and feel better. It quickly became a familiar presence in the German household, a small, legal dose of manufactured vitality. But the drug's remarkable effects soon caught the attention of the Nazi military. High Command observed how this simple pep pill could strip away a man's natural limits, erasing exhaustion and dissolving fear. A chilling strategic possibility began to take shape. What if this chemical power could be weaponized on the battlefield? Initial military trials produced staggering results. Soldiers under the influence of Pervitin became something unnervingly more than human. They could march for days without sleep, fight without feeling hunger, and operate with a cold, mechanical focus. The psychological burdens of combat, hesitation, stress, and terror seemed to simply melt away. The results were undeniable. By 1939, the Nazi High Command ordered the mass production of Pervitin for the Wehrmacht. Military doctors published papers in official journals praising the drug for its ability to amplify a soldier's fighting spirit and willingness to take extreme risks. The pill was no longer just a remedy, it was becoming an instrument of war. When Germany prepared to unleash its Blitzkrieg on France in April of 1940, Pervitin was an integral part of the assault. An astonishing 35 million tablets were distributed to the troops for that single campaign. Fueled by the drug, soldiers drove tanks through the night without rest and marched over 50 kilometers without breaking stride. Pilots flew their missions with a wired, unwavering intensity. It became known as the Stuka Tabletin, or Go Pills. Soldiers gave it their own grimly affectionate nickname, Panzer Schokolade, or tank chocolate, as it was sometimes mixed into candy. As one German army doctor noted, their secret weapon was not a new tank, but a pill. The Nazis now possessed a battle plan that would stun the world, driven by a force it could not yet comprehend. The sound that echoed across the continent was not thunder, but the roar of engines. It was the signature of a terrifying new doctrine of war the Germans called Blitzkrieg, a lightning strike designed to shatter an enemy's will before they could even grasp what was happening. This torrent of steel and fire demanded a new breed of soldier, one who could transcend the limits of human endurance. To achieve this inhuman pace, the German High Command turned to a small white tablet known as Pervitin. Inside the claustrophobic hulls of their panzers, crews swallowed the pills and drove for 3, even 4 days without sleep, their world reduced to the shudder of the tracks and the drone of the engine. High above, Luftwaffe pilots on long-range bombing missions flew for 8 or 10 hours, delivered their payload, and immediately turned back, their focus sharpened by a chemical edge. On the ground, the infantry matched this relentless tempo. Soldiers marched for 36 hours or more without rest, hauling heavy equipment through dense forests and frozen mud, yet still found the strength to fight. Some units covered over 80 kilometers in just 2 days, a feat made possible by the methamphetamine coursing through their veins. This strategy reached its terrifying apex during the invasion of France in May of 1940. The Allied command believed the Ardennes forest was a natural fortress, a wilderness too dense and rugged for a modern armored assault. But as French and British troops waited for an attack elsewhere, the impossible happened. German divisions poured through the forest with unnatural speed, a phantom army that did not sleep. This breakthrough was fueled by official orders, with commanders instructed to issue 2 Pervitin tablets per man each day, and more if the chaos of combat demanded it. But the euphoria was a fleeting illusion, a debt that would be repaid in agony. When the effects of Pervitin finally wore off, the crash was nothing short of brutal. Soldiers who had been paragons of stamina would suddenly feel a wave of dizziness and weakness, some collapsing in the thick of battle, their bodies refusing to move. Others were consumed by paranoia and aggression, turning on shadows or their own comrades. There were harrowing reports of men experiencing vivid hallucinations, convinced they were being hunted by enemies that existed only in their chemically fractured minds. Entire squads sometimes had to be pulled from the front lines as the collective crash hit them all at once, rendering them useless. By the close of 1940, military doctors began to sound the alarm, documenting cases of psychosis, addiction, and complete emotional breakdown. Yet for the high command, the short-term advantages on the battlefield outweighed the long-term destruction of their own men. This chemical corruption ran deepest within the SS, the Schutzstaffel, an organization bound not by standard military discipline, but by a fanatical loyalty to Hitler himself. They were the architects of the regime's darkest work, the operators of the death squads, and the commandants of concentration camps like Auschwitz, Treblinka, and Majdanek. Here, evidence suggests many were caught in a deadly cocktail of not only methamphetamine, but also morphine and other opioids. The combination was monstrously effective. Methamphetamine fueled their aggression and alertness, while the opioids numbed their emotions, stripping away the final vestiges of empathy. Together, these drugs may have enabled them to carry out the most inhuman acts without hesitation, transforming men into cold-blooded instruments of slaughter. Some Nazi doctors even saw this as a tactical benefit. Others were simply indifferent to the human cost, focused only on results. Inside the camps, this philosophy reached its nadir, as doctors like Karl Klauber and Eduard Wirtz used prisoners as human laboratories. At Auschwitz, Dachau, and Sachsenhausen, victims were injected with meth to test the absolute limits of human endurance, pushed without food or sleep until their hearts gave out. In one experiment, prisoners were frozen and then given the drug, a desperate attempt to see if it could prolong their agony. Most died in unimaginable torment. The SS officers themselves were often lost in their own drug-induced haze, their grasp on reality completely severed. There were accounts of guards screaming at shadows, hallucinating prisoner uprisings where there were none. At Majdanek, one guard reportedly executed multiple prisoners, convinced he could hear them whispering inside his head. Another officer was seen shaking uncontrollably before flying into a sudden rage, beating a prisoner to death with his bare hands. By 1943, the rampant drug abuse had become so severe that even the Nazi leadership could no longer ignore it. Internal reports warned that SS officers were unstable, unpredictable, and in some cases, utterly insane, driven by personal acts of wild violence rather than orders. But the attempts to rein in the use of Pervitin were far too late. The men were addicted, their minds shattered, and the damage had been irrevocably done. Ideology had forged the hatred, but pharmacology may have been the key that unlocked the capacity for such sustained, industrial-scale savagery. The drug did not create the evil, but it likely erased the thin line between carrying out an order and reveling in the abyss. And this culture of chemical dependency reached all the way to the very top. In the shadowed world behind the Reich's public facade, a far more private and insidious war was being waged, not on the battlefields of Europe, but within the Führer's own veins. This hidden struggle was enabled by his personal physician, Dr. Theodor Morell, a figure many in Hitler's circle dismissed as a dangerous charlatan in a white coat. But Hitler's faith was absolute. For any complaint, from a stomach cramp to a wave of exhaustion, Morell stood ready with a syringe, and Hitler craved the artificial strength he believed each injection provided. Between 1941 and 1945, Morell administered a staggering cocktail of over 80 different drugs. These were not merely vitamins. Records now confirm he was receiving regular, powerful doses of methamphetamine, sometimes several times a day. The daily regimen also included the potent opioid Eucadol, a narcotic similar to modern oxycodone, and even cocaine-based treatments for his throat, all while using barbiturates to force his agitated mind into sleep. In a bizarre display of medical desperation, Morell's prescriptions extended to injections of bull semen extract, a desperate attempt to bolster Hitler's flagging stamina. By 1944, this relentless chemical onslaught was taking a visible toll. Newsreel footage from the era reveals a man disintegrating, his left hand shaking so uncontrollably that he would nervously hide it behind his back. His posture was stooped, his face a tense, frozen mask. His mind was fracturing just as quickly as his body. His speech grew erratic, his mood swinging violently from manic confidence to paranoid fury as he accused his most trusted generals of treason. He ignored grim reality, speaking instead of miracle weapons and impossible victories, his strategic judgment utterly compromised by the drugs coursing through him. Through it all, Morell's daily injections continued without pause. In the final, suffocating days deep within the Führer bunker, he was a complete dependent. As the world above crumbled, he spent his time consumed by paranoia. His health totally collapsed, plagued by rotting teeth, pale and sweaty skin, and constant tremors. He was a ghost, haunting a concrete tomb, still receiving his daily doses as Berlin burned above. When he finally took his own life on April 30th, 1945, he was a man already hollowed out by poison and delusion. As the final brutal year of the war dawned, the German Reich was collapsing in on itself. The once unbreakable war machine that had conquered a continent was now a shattered wreck, its gears grinding to a halt. Across the Reich, cities became tombs of rubble, soldiers died in their thousands, and the lifelines of supply withered away. Yet in the face of this undeniable reality, the Nazi leadership retreated into a fortress of delusion, its walls fortified by propaganda and potent drugs. By late 1944, Allied armies were surging from the west, while the Soviet Red Army crushed German divisions in the east. Night after night, the skies above Berlin roared to life, raining fire upon a terrified, freezing, and starving populace. But deep beneath the Reich Chancellery, in the stale, recycled air of an underground bunker, the architects of this ruin pretended victory was still within their grasp, a fantasy sustained by a cocktail of desperation and chemical compounds. This spiral of denial consumed the highest echelons of power. Propaganda Minister Joseph Goebbels depended on sleeping pills to find rest, spent his final days composing hollow praises for his Führer. He did so, knowing the lives of his 6 children were forfeit, secretly preparing to end their lives alongside his own. Nearby, SS Chief Heinrich Himmler used stimulants to manage his disintegrating departments, even as he frantically sought a separate peace with the Allies. The leadership corps dissolved into paranoia and argument, with some plotting escape while others remained paralyzed by fear or a blind fanatical loyalty. The evil that drove this regime, however, was not born in a laboratory. It flowed from a toxic ideology built on racial supremacy, virulent anti-Semitism, and a lust for total domination. The decisions to invade nations and erect death camps were made by men who were true believers in this doctrine. The drugs did not create their hatred, but they undeniably sharpened its edge, acting as a chemical accelerant for a machine already committed to violence. Only after the war did the world begin to grasp the sheer scale of this dependence. Military documents, medical records, and survivor testimonies revealed a truth once dismissed as rumor. Millions of tablets had been manufactured and distributed, implicating everyone from the common soldier to the highest echelons of command. The story of the Nazi regime's reliance on chemical courage was only just beginning to be unearthed from the rubble. The war's end in 1945 was not a final chapter, but merely a turn of the page. The ghost of Pervitin did not vanish in the rubble of the Third Reich. Instead, it resurfaced under new guises, its formula repackaged for a world eager to forget. By the 1950s, it appeared in the United States as Obitrol, marketed as a harmless pill for weight loss and renewed energy. With slight modifications to its chemical structure, Obitrol would later evolve into a far more familiar name, Adderall, a treatment for attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. While not identical to the crude stimulants of the war, its lineage was unmistakable, tracing a direct line back to the same family of amphetamine-based compounds engineered to sharpen focus and hold exhaustion at bay. Meanwhile, many of the scientists who had pioneered these substances for the Nazi war machine never faced a tribunal. In the chilling pragmatism of the Cold War, they were quietly recruited by both the United States and the Soviet Union in clandestine operations like Project Paperclip. Their dark knowledge was considered too valuable to lose. These researchers were put to work in top-secret programs, advancing aerospace, weapons technology, and military medicine. Their expertise in pharmacology played a crucial role in developing the next generation of military drugs, ensuring that the science of chemically enhanced soldiers would continue long after its originators were gone. A substance in itself possesses no inherent morality. Its character is defined by the intent of those who use it. In Nazi Germany, these drugs were not instruments of healing. They were tools to make men more efficient instruments of slaughter, to accelerate an agenda of unimaginable violence without the drag of human conscience. When a radical ideology is fused with a compound that erases fear, pain, and empathy, the result is a uniquely terrifying form of inhumanity.